Swayong Han pointed a lie detector at Kim Dokja and asked him the questions that had been eating at her since they met. And every answer she got back only deepened the mystery, because this man was not a renouncer, not a prophet, not anything she could categorize. And then, before she could ask the one question that mattered most, a monster wearing a familiar name came hunting through the ruins. The interrogation began with her 3 questions. Is this thing broken? Swayong wondered, staring at her lie detection skill. Nope, it isn't, Dokja said. I'll answer 3 questions. You've already used one up. So she pressed him on the thing that baffled her most. Why did you give up the throne? She demanded. You ruined my plan by doing that. Do you know how hard I worked to stop the world from ending? And Dokja answered honestly, that if he had taken the throne, Seoul would already be in ruins. We would have been doomed, he said, no matter who sat on the throne. Her skill confirmed it, he was telling the truth. It really must be broken, she muttered, unable to accept that his impossible answers kept checking out. But it was the deeper question that unsettled her. How do you know that? She demanded. What number renouncer are you? He's telling the truth, her skill insisted. How is it that you know something even I don't? And Kim Dokja gave the answer that changed everything. I'm not a renouncer, he said. Ding. Her mind reeled. No, she thought, it can't be. No one could have been mad enough to. Because if he wasn't a renouncer, if he wasn't one of the readers who had given up on the story, then there was only one terrifying possibility left. How much of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse have you read? She demanded. But she was out of questions. You've used up all 3, Dokja reminded her. But this is the most important one, she cried. Answer me. She had glimpsed the truth and could not quite believe it, that the man in front of her might be the one reader who had finished the entire story. There was no time to finish the thought, because something was coming. Something's coming, Dokja warned. Dash. Footsteps echoed through the ruins, and shapes emerged that were wrong in every way. They look vaguely human, Swayong said, but... Kim Dokja activated his skill and got the most unsettling result. This character does not have a registered character profile. They're not characters, Swayong gasped. They're humanoid demons. Creatures that had once been people, now twisted into something monstrous, prowling the wreckage. They destroyed the coin farms, someone realized. The beasts had torn through the survivor settlements, leaving ruin behind. And here Kim Dokja learned a grim truth about the world without a king. Because the renouncers, the readers stranded in this apocalypse, had each chosen their own way to survive. Some choose to remain as humans and run coin farms, the story explained. While others give up their humanity and live on as a new species. The wanderers all had their own way of survival. They must have used the meteorite. Some readers had clung to their humanity. Others had surrendered it entirely, using the fallen meteorites to transform themselves into demons, trading their human forms for raw power. He's a renouncer, Swayong said of the lead beast. How do you know that? I can just tell. It's my power as the last renouncer. I can see the stats and attributes of all the other renouncers. That was her gift, the ability to identify every reader in this world, the very skill that had made her suspicious of Kim Dokja, because it had never worked on him. And then the beast revealed its name, and Kim Dokja's blood ran cold. Because Swayong read it with her skill. His name, she said, is Minu Song. Minu Song. Kim Dokja knew that name. He's not a character, he thought, staring, but I've definitely heard of that name before. Because Minu Song was not from the pages of any novel. Minu Song was from Kim Dokja's own past, a name out of a life he had tried to forget, a ghost from before the world ever ended. And now that ghost was standing in front of him as a monster. Something's different about him, Dokja realized. He's not like the other renouncers. And Swyong's skill confirmed exactly what made him different. Using my skill on him, she reported, it says he's a renouncer who's only read chapter 173. A reader who had gotten further than most, far enough to know a good deal of what was coming, and who had chosen to throw away his humanity to survive it. He had read the story, given up on it, and then given up on being human, and the result was the thing now bearing its fangs at them. The transformation completed, and the system named the threat. Tier 6 humanoid demon, werewolf Minu Song, is checking its surroundings. A massive red-maned werewolf, all fangs and fury, its eyes locking onto its prey. I found you, it snarled. Because the demon that had once been Minu Song was hunting, and now it had caught the scent of Kim Dokja, the one reader who had finished the story that broke them all. And all of this unfolded under the quiet cruelty of the ongoing scenario. Sub-scenario, survival activities. Survive in the ruined city for 10 days. Eat 3 meals a day, sleep 6 hours a night, pay a survival fee before sleeping. Reward, none. Penalty for failure, death. This is a scenario where the coin event is applied, and all monsters that appear have a chance to drop coins when defeated. 10 days to survive, in a city crawling with demons that had once been readers, hunted by a werewolf wearing a name from his own forgotten past. Kim Dokja had come out of the War of Kings into a stranger, darker world, one where the readers who couldn't finish the story had become monsters, and where a ghost from his own life now hunted him with fangs and claws. Swyong Han was beginning to understand what he truly was. And the werewolf Minu Song had found its prey. The loneliest reader in the world stood in the ruins beside a former enemy, a demon closing in, and secrets from his past clawing their way back into the light. His story, as always, was only just beginning. The monster hunting Kim Dokja was not a stranger. It was his high school bully, the boy who used to torment him, now transformed into a demon. And facing that ghost from his past unlocked the deepest secret of Kim Dokja's entire existence, the truth about the strange power called the fourth wall, and why it had been shaking. This is the chapter where Kim Dokja finally understands what he is. The werewolf lunged, and with it came a voice out of a life Kim Dokja had tried to forget. Hey, Dokja, it sneered, the memory bleeding into the present. Didn't you hear me? Stop reading that crap and go get us some snacks. Because that was who Minu Song had been, the jock who bullied the quiet boy who was always reading, the tormentor of Kim Dokja's teenage years. Was it you who destroyed my coin farm? The werewolf snarled. Character Swyong Han activated her mental barrier, softening the beast's carnivorous threat, and screamed at Dokja to fight back. Kill him now, she cried. But Minu Song recognized him. You look familiar, the demon growled. You nerd. I can't believe you're into this crap. What's so fun about it? Oh, I remember. You know me, right? Nope, Dokja said flatly. Really, the werewolf laughed. I think you do. Who would have guessed that a loser like you would survive this long? You were always reading that thing. There was a bitter irony in it that only Kim Dokja could feel. The bully who mocked him for reading had ended up trapped in the very story Kim Dokja had read to the end, transformed into a monster by a novel he'd only gotten a fraction of the way through. And then, facing the ghost of his trauma, Kim Dokja finally understood the mystery that had haunted him since the world began. The fourth wall. I finally get it, he realized. It's not that he's strong. The problem is with me. Because the fourth wall, his strangest and most powerful skill, had always worked in ways he couldn't quite explain. The skill didn't work properly that time, he remembered, when I entered Jungheek's body in the first person. And now, standing before Minu Song, the pieces came together. I've had this personal skill from the beginning, he thought. I think I finally get what the fourth wall does. And here is the revelation at the heart of Omniscient Reader, the thing that explains Kim Dokja himself. The fourth wall is a term from the theater. It refers to an invisible wall that exists between the audience and the actors on a stage. It divides the two groups so that they cannot interact with each other. And Kim Dokja's skill did exactly that. The fourth wall skill makes me perceive reality as a novel, he understood. That was the secret. That was why he could stay calm when everyone else panicked, why he could make cold, quick decisions in the face of horror, why he could watch this world's tragedies with a reader's detachment. To Kim Dokja, thanks to the fourth wall, the apocalypse always felt a little bit like fiction. Unlike the real world, he realized, I was able to make quick decisions, as if I were looking at myself from an outsider's perspective. It was all possible because I had the fourth wall skill. But that same wall had a crack in it. Because if the fourth wall makes reality feel like a novel, then something that feels undeniably real would make the wall shake. And that was Minu's song. That must be why, Dokja realized, I recognize Minu's song as reality. His bully was not a character to him. His bully was a genuine memory, a real wound from a real life, and coming face to face with him made the world feel real again, cracking the detachment the fourth wall provided. I can't have the fourth wall shake, he thought, every time I come across someone who's traumatized me. The very thing that kept him sane was destabilized by the ghosts of his own past. And this is what makes the moment so powerful, because it is not really about a werewolf at all. It is about a man confronting his childhood trauma. Look at Dokja, the narration says. There's no way that thing is human. The Minu song who used to bully you is no more. What you see in front of you is just a humanoid monster. And Kim Dokja looked at the beast that had once terrified him, and he found that he was no longer afraid. And I'm 28 years old now, he thought. I'm no longer the 17-year-old whose biggest problem is his school bully. That single line carries the weight of the whole scene. The frightened boy who hid in novels to escape his tormentor had grown up. He had survived monsters and tyrants and gods. And the bully who once loomed so large over his life was now just another monster to be dealt with, small and pitiful by comparison. The constellations felt it too. A constellation who likes revenge plots revealed his nickname. The one who overcame the trials a little too late is rooting for you. Because they understood what this fight really was. And the system turned it into a scenario. A bounty scenario. Overcome trauma. Overcome your trauma within the time limit and rid yourself of the specter of your past. Category, Sub. Difficulty, C. This was not a battle for coins or survival. It was a battle for Kim Dokja's own peace, a chance to face the ghost that had shaped him and finally leave it behind. There was a tender moment in it too, with Swyong Han. She had glimpsed his pain. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, she said quietly. But I overheard what he said. He traumatized you when you were young. Yeah, I do, Dokja admitted. He traumatized me a little. And even in the middle of a life-or-death fight, there was something almost gentle in the way she offered to help. So, what is it, she said, let Big Sis help you out. Don't people suddenly power up with a few words of encouragement in these stories? It was a small kindness from a former enemy, an acknowledgement that even the coldest reader carried old wounds. And the fourth wall, cracked as it was, still protected him. It hurts more than usual where I was hit, Dokja noticed, but I almost forgot that the fourth wall also works to alleviate pain. The wall that let him perceive the world as fiction also dulled the agony of his wounds, one more way it kept him standing when he should have fallen. But he could not let it keep shaking. Who's traumatized me, the memories whispered, and Dokja pushed them down, refusing to let the ghost of Minu's song break his mind. Then he did what he always did. He fought smart, and he fought with everything he had. He poured his fortune into raw power. You have spent 6,000 coins on agility, the system reported. Your entire body begins to feel as agile as the wind. You have spent 15,000 coins on strength. Your muscles are bulging like a monster. He activated unbreakable faith, its ether affix shifting, and readied himself. I'll be fine, he told Swayong. I've finished powering up. Wipe that blood off your nose and stand back. You've done enough. The werewolf came at him with terrifying speed. How is he moving so fast, Dokja thought, barely tracking the beast. Jump. He spent more coins mid-fight, 7,000 on agility, pushing himself past human limits. A flurry of swiftness overcomes your entire body, the system reported, as Dokja became a blur to match the demon. Slash. Blade met claw in a storm of speed and fury, the reader and the monster tearing across the ruins, blood in the air. The boy who once cowered before this bully now stood toe-to-toe with the monster he'd become, no longer afraid, no longer helpless, no longer the 17-year-old hiding in a book. This is why Omniscient Reader is more than an apocalypse story. Because in the middle of demons and scenarios and cosmic constellations, its true subject is a lonely boy who used a story to survive a painful life, and who is only now, as a grown man in a ruined world, learning to face the wounds that made him. The fourth wall that lets him treat the apocalypse like fiction is the same shield he built as a child to survive his own reality. And Minu's song, the bully turned werewolf, is the ghost of everything Kim Dokja once wanted to escape. Kim Dokja had finally understood himself, a reader whose deepest power was the ability to see his own life as a story, and whose deepest wound was the reality that story was built to escape. Now that wound stood in front of him, transformed into a monster, and the system had given him a chance to overcome it once and for all. He was 28 years old. He was not afraid anymore. And with an unbreakable blade in his hand and his trauma bared before him, the loneliest reader in the world moved to bury the ghost of his past. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja was stronger than his old bully now. He had powered up, outfought the werewolf, and had him beaten. And yet, as he stood over the monster that had once terrorized him, his fists would not stop shaking. Because this was never really a fight about strength. It was a fight against a wound he had carried since he was 17, and to win it, Kim Dokja would have to do the hardest thing of all, forgive himself. The werewolf fought like the demon it was. Slash. But every wound Kim Dokja opened, the beast closed. Physical regeneration, a skill exclusive to werewolves, the system noted. His regeneration is too fast. Is he receiving a protection of some kind? So Dokja did what he always did, poured his coins into raw power. You have spent 8,000 coins on strength, the system reported, as his stats climbed toward the scenario's limit. He was overwhelming the beast now, but the constellations wouldn't be happy if it were too easy. Minu, he said to the monster that had once been his bully, I didn't get to greet you properly earlier. Crack. And he drove the werewolf back. But then came the moment that mattered, and it had nothing to do with claws or coins. Because as Kim Dokja stood over the beaten monster, the old memories rose up and his hands began to tremble. Personal skill, the fourth wall, is shaking, the system warned. There's no such thing as a little trauma, Dokja realized. Damn it. I'm definitely stronger than him now, but my fists are shaking. He was a grown man who had slain sea commanders and demon lords and toppled kings, and he could not stop his own hands from trembling in front of the boy who used to bully him. That is how deep a childhood wound can run. Slyong was right, he thought. The strength of his body meant nothing against the memory in his mind. And the memory poured out of him. You used to be a loser who read fantasy novels all day long, the ghost of Minu's song sneered, the taunt out of a life Kim Dokja had tried to bury. Smack. Pow. And the 17-year-old Dokja, the narration tells us, will forever be stuck in that moment. This is nowhere near enough to make up for what he did to me. I was helpless and weak. And all I did back then was read. There it was, the wound beneath the wound. Kim Dokja's trauma was not just that he was bullied. It was that he had been powerless, that all he could do was hide in stories while the world hurt him. And that helplessness had shaped everything he became. The beaten bully begged. Please, stop, the werewolf whimpered. Arg, stop. Why should I, Dokja demanded. I'm sorry, I apologize, it cried. I didn't know better. And here Kim Dokja said the thing that cut to the truth of it. I'm not beating you to get an apology out of you, he said. Because an apology from his bully was not what he needed. I don't think you get it, he continued. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. The person Kim Dokja truly needed to make peace with was not Minu's song at all. It was himself, the helpless boy he had been, the child he had never forgiven for being weak. He tried, at first, to be the bigger man. That it was just something stupid he did in his youth, he told himself. I know he was just young and immature. And as an adult, I know I should stop this senseless violence. But the word hung there, because forgiveness that comes too easily is not forgiveness at all. And so Kim Dokja reached for the strangest source of clarity he had, the hero he had followed for a decade. Junghyuk, he thought. What would Junghyuk have done? And he imagined it, the regressor's cold fury at betrayal, the ruthless certainty. You've betrayed me, the imagined Junghyuk said. Die. Yeah, Dokja thought. That's what Junghyuk would have done. And somehow, picturing the hero's uncompromising rage let Kim Dokja stop performing the role of the forgiving adult and simply feel what he felt. I guess I still have some growing up to do, he admitted, and then he laughed. Ha. Ha ha ha. It was not a happy laugh, but it was an honest one, the laugh of a man finally letting himself off the hook. Personal skill, the fourth wall, is beginning to shake less, the system reported. Because the moment he stopped pretending, the moment he accepted his own anger and his own wounds, the wall steadied. And then he claimed the truth about himself, the one Minu's song had always mocked. I still read, he said. Fantasy novels. He would not be ashamed of the boy who hid in stories. That boy had survived. That boy had read the whole apocalypse to its end. Reading had not made him weak. Reading had made him the most dangerous person in this world. Whoosh. Crash. And with that acceptance, he finished the fight. The system confirmed it. Bounty scenario, overcome trauma. The clear condition for the bounty scenario has been met. He had done it, not by beating a werewolf, but by making a fragile peace with his own past. You're such a freak, Swyong marveled. How can you beat up a werewolf with your bare hands? And Kim Dokja understood exactly what he had gained. The fourth wall is no longer shaking at the sight of him, he thought. I may not have fully overcome my trauma. But I guess I've gained a little tolerance against it. He had not erased the wound. Some wounds never fully heal. But he had learned to stand in front of it without breaking, and that was its own kind of victory. The constellation that had watched over his struggle rewarded him. The one who overcame the trials a little too late is offering you his stigma, the system announced. What, Dokja thought, he's offering me his stigma. You have obtained the stigma, self-justification. You now have a defense system that makes you impervious to trauma. It was a fittingly ironic gift, a power called self-justification, born from a constellation who had made peace with its own regrets too late, now passed to a man learning to make peace with his in time. Self-justification, is this any good? Dokja wondered. Even the prisoner of the golden headband was rolling on the floor laughing at the absurd, perfect appropriateness of it. Then came a colder decision. Hey, the others said, aren't you going to kill this thing? I mean, him. And Kim Dokja weighed it. Do I have to, he thought. I won't be breaking any rules since it's not even human. The constellations in Bai Hyung's channel would love it if I do. The werewolf's own supporting constellation glared, and many constellations wanted to see him take revenge. But Kim Dokja, wearing the crown of the king of no killing, and carrying a lifetime of complicated feelings about the boy Minu's song had been, chose not to strike the final blow himself. Are you really not going to kill him? Someone pressed. He probably has a lot of coins. That's right, Dokja said, and let it go. The constellations were puzzled. The secretive plotter watched in silence. And then Swyong Han asked a question of her own. Then can I, she said. And here Kim Dokja did something quietly devious. Fine, he said. You're going to regret it though. Regret it? Swyong asked, suspicious. Well, you said I could, so. And she took the kill. Swoosh. Stab. Swyong Han drove her blade into the fallen werewolf and delivered the final blow. I told you you would regret it, Dokja thought, watching. Because Kim Dokja knew something Swyong did not. He knew exactly what killing a tier 6 demon would summon. Ding. 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 The notifications flooded in. Why am I getting so many notifications? Swyong wondered. And the system spelled out the disaster. The Demon King, the architect of discord, has taken note of your presence, because you killed the tier 6 humanoid demon, werewolf Minu Song. The Demon King, the architect of discord, will remember the incarnation who delivered the final blow. The Demon King, the architect of discord, will send its subjects out to search for the incarnation who delivered the final blow. Because slaying a demon of that rank drew the eye of a Demon King, one of the most terrifying beings in the entire star stream, and now that Demon King was hunting the one who struck the killing blow. And that was Swyong Han. You bastard, she screamed, realizing too late that Kim Dokja had let her take the kill precisely so that the Demon King's deadly attention would land on her instead of him. I knew that'd happen, Dokja thought with a small satisfied smile. It was a cruel, clever trick, played on a former enemy who had, after all, spent the whole day pointing a lie detector at him. This is the heart of what makes Kim Dokja such a fascinating protagonist. In a single chapter, he confronts the deepest, most painful trauma of his life, makes a fragile and genuine peace with the helpless boy he used to be, and comes away wiser and gentler for it. And then, in almost the same breath, he coldly manipulates his ally into taking on a Demon King's wrath. He is compassionate and calculating, wounded and ruthless, all at once. The same man who forgave himself for being weak will not hesitate to trick you if it keeps him and his people alive. Kim Dokja had faced the ghost of his bully, the specter of his own helplessness, and walked away from it standing tall. He had learned that the person he most needed to forgive was himself, that reading had been his strength and not his shame, and that a childhood wound could be tolerated even if it could never be fully healed. He had gained a stigma, a hard-won peace, and one more clever advantage over the plagiarist now bound to his side. But the Demon King, the architect of discord, was awake now, its subjects already fanning out across the ruined city in search of the one who slew its servant. The survival scenario ground on, 10 days of monsters and coins and cruelty. And the loneliest reader in the world, a little more whole than he had been that morning, turned toward whatever came next. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had just tricked Swyong Han into a Demon King's crosshairs, and she was furious. But the fifth scenario was already unfolding around them, and it would introduce a new kind of power in this world, the Demon Kings, reveal the truth about Swyong Han's real goal, and end with a masked figure whose very presence made Kim Dokja's heart pound with recognition he couldn't yet name. "You're really a prick," Swyong seethed. "How could you?" "Because the system had marked her. The Demon King, the architect of discord, will remember the incarnation who delivered the final blow." And Kim Dokja explained what that meant, opening a window onto a whole new tier of power in the apocalypse. "Constellations aren't the only powerful beings on the star stream," he told her. "There are powerful beings who've refused the constellations and wander the scenarios. Just as the constellations have their incarnations, the Demon Kings seek subjects, usually those who've become humanoid demons. Andres, the architect of discord, is a Demon King in the lower ranks of the 72 Demon Kings. He is represented by wolves. The Demon Kings. A dark mirror of the constellations, patrons of monsters instead of heroes." And Kim Dokja offered the strangest possible comfort. "Don't worry," he told the panicking Swyong. "I knew someone who was a Demon King's target, but he didn't die right away." "Are you trying to console me right now?" she snapped. Because his example was Myongo Han, a man cursed by a Demon King, which had not exactly ended well. "You're fine," Dokja insisted. "The architect of discord isn't even ranked that high. Being cursed by a Demon King will actually get you a lot of donations by gaining the favor of the absolute good alignment. The archangels love an underdog fighting a demon." "I don't care about the archangels," Swyong groaned. It was classic Kim Dokja, turning even a death sentence into a strategic advantage. The conversation turned to supporting constellations, and here we learned something important about both readers. Because neither of them had chosen one. "You don't have a supporting constellation yet, do you?" Swyong asked. And Kim Dokja explained his philosophy. "It's better to hold off choosing a supporting constellation for as long as possible," he said. "There are plenty of great constellations, and depending on your activity, you could come across even better ones." So he had stayed and signed, keeping his options open, refusing to bind himself too early. And Swyong, it turned out, had done the same. "It's not that I couldn't," she said. "I just haven't chosen yet. You only get one shot at it, so why would I be so hasty on my first regression?" Two readers, both playing the long game, both too smart to lock themselves into a patron before they'd seen the whole board. They even shared a joke about it. "Do you know of a constellation named the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon?" Swyong asked. "The constellation for edgelords, with its dramatic name and its brooding vibe. He'd make a great supporting constellation," Dokja deadpanned. "You can do it." "You sure don't sound sincere," she noted, as the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon watched, visibly disappointed by their mockery. It's a small, funny moment, two lonely readers ribbing each other about melodramatic constellations, and it shows how their wary alliance was slowly warming into something like camaraderie. But then the horror returned. They reached the werewolf headquarters, and it was a nightmare. "Looks like someone's already been through here," Dokja observed. "Gross," Swyong recoiled. What the hell is that? And Kim Dokja, shielded by the fourth wall from the emotional shock, explained the grim truth of how a human becomes a monster. There are a few ways for humans to transform into a humanoid demon, he said. Cannibalism. Absolute beasts. They feed on other humans. Most humanoid demons accidentally become one while scavenging for food, and once they transform, they no longer hesitate to kill other humans. It was the darkest possible fate of the apocalypse, starving survivors driven to eat each other, and in doing so, losing their humanity entirely, becoming the werewolves and demons that now prowled the ruins. I guess this kind of thing made me angry too, Dokja admitted. Of course. How can you not feel anything after seeing all this? Even behind the fourth wall, the cruelty of it reached him. And here Swyong Han revealed her true self, and it recast everything. Because the disciples had painted her as a villain who wanted to seize the world. The other prophets told me your goal is to take over the world with the information you have, Dokja said. Take over the world, she scoffed. Yeah, I'd love to. But my first goal is to stop the world from ending. Why do you think I gathered the disciples? They were pretty shady, every last one of them. In other words, Swyong Han was not the antagonist she'd been made out to be. She had gathered the readers, the disciples, not to conquer the world but to save it, and they had turned shady on her, twisting her purpose. Who told you that? She demanded, stung by the accusation. That's as absurd as when people called me out as a plagiarist. Another reader trying, in her own flawed way, to prevent the apocalypse from reaching its terrible end. She and Kim Dokja were more alike than either had realized. Then a new power crashed onto the scene. Bang! 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 Gunfire echoed through the ruins, and something impossible was happening. A group was killing werewolves with guns. You can't fight a werewolf with guns, Dokja knew, but these bullets were different. Elemental bullets, the system revealed. Bullets infused with holy properties. Werewolves' carcasses burnt to a crisp. A whole organized force, armed with blessed ammunition, cutting down the demons that ordinary weapons couldn't touch. Gungyo, someone gasped. But I thought the whole military already died out. They were wanderers, renouncers who had survived and organized, and now they've become the strongest of them all. And they were led by someone Kim Dokja couldn't read. Hey, do you remember me saying there was someone just like you at Sia Demon Penitentiary? Swyong said. That's her group over there. She sure acts like a renouncer, but nothing comes up on the profile when I check. She's the leader. A masked figure whose profile was sealed, exactly like Kim Dokja's own, exactly like the rarest and most significant people in the entire story. The group's lieutenant confronted them, and to Kim Dokja's shock, she knew his name. Are you Dokja Kim? She demanded. They know who I am, he thought, alarmed. So he reached for his old disguise. You must be mistaken, he said. My name is Junghikyu. Dokja Kim is someone I absolutely hate. But the lie didn't work this time. Shut up and just do as I say, the lieutenant said. We already know you're Dokja Kim. There's no use in lying. And then came the twist. Because these renouncers had not come to fight him. They had come to give him something. That we will entrust you with the meteorite, the lieutenant said. Kim Dokja was stunned. Not only do they know me, but they want to just give me the meteorite. Because that meteorite was no ordinary rock. That's the yellow meteorite that wards off catastrophe, he realized. A treasure that could hold back the disasters of the fifth scenario. Who are you? He demanded. We are the subjects of the King of the Wanderers, the lieutenant answered. And she delivered a message from that king, a message Swyong's lie detection confirmed was true. We will deal with the catastrophe in the north, the king had said. You deal with the remaining 4 catastrophes. That is all. An alliance offered by a mysterious king, dividing the catastrophes of the apocalypse between them, and gifting Kim Dokja the very artifact he'd need to survive. Kim Dokja studied the lieutenant, and even she was formidable. His skill updated, and her profile finally appeared. Josian's top spiritualist, her supporting constellation. It may not be as powerful as a judge, he assessed, but she even has the enforcer class, which is almost as good. And that raised a staggering question. Just how powerful is the king, he wondered, if her subject is at this level? Because if a mere lieutenant of the king of the Wanderers commanded this kind of strength, then the king themselves had to be something extraordinary. And then Kim Dokja looked at the king, and his whole body reacted before his mind could. Because the king of the Wanderers was masked, and their profile was sealed. This character's information cannot be viewed using character profile, the system reported. This character does not have a registered character profile. And Kim Dokja's heart began to pound. Thump. 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 No way, he thought, staring at the masked figure. Thump. Thump. Because a sealed profile was one of the rarest things in the entire story, reserved for people of enormous significance, people connected to the deepest secrets of the apocalypse, people like Yu Junghyuk, like Yu Sanga, like Kim Dokja himself. And something about this particular masked king struck a chord of recognition in him that he could not yet name, a familiarity that made his pulse hammer against his ribs. No way. Thump. 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 Who was the king of the Wanderers? Someone from the story? Someone from his past? Someone who knew him as well as he knew the novel? Kim Dokja didn't have the answer yet, but his own body was screaming that this mattered, that this masked figure was someone he should know, someone whose identity could change everything. The survival scenario ground on, 10 days in a ruined city crawling with demons. He had a demon king hunting his ally, a catastrophe-warding meteorite in his hands, for disasters to face, and a warming friendship with a former enemy who, it turned out, wanted to save the world just as badly as he did. But it was the masked king that filled his mind now, the sealed profile, the pounding heart, the impossible feeling of recognition. The loneliest reader in the world stood before a mystery that felt achingly personal. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had faced his bully and made peace with that trauma. But the masked king of the Wanderers unlocked a far deeper wound, one so painful that even the fourth wall couldn't shield him from it. And rather than confront it, Kim Dokja turned to a fallen star, a meteorite that would hatch into a god, and reveal that his decision to destroy the throne had consequences far greater than he ever imagined. His heart would not stop pounding. Thump. 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 Hey, what's wrong? Swyong asked. Yeah, it's nothing, Dokja said, but it was not nothing. This was more shocking than when I saw Minu's song, he thought. Because there was one person who had traumatized him more than any bully ever could. There's only one person who has traumatized me more than him, he realized, staring at the masked king, so much that I feel it even with the fourth wall. The wall that let him treat the whole apocalypse like fiction could not make this feel unreal. I guess she's made it, he thought. But I didn't realize she was in Seoul. And here is one of the most quietly devastating turns in the whole story. Because the king of the Wanderers was not a renouncer. She was not a reader. She had never opened the novel. To be exact, Dokja said, she probably hasn't even read the novel. Then how could she possibly know what happens? Swyong asked, baffled. And Kim Dokja gave the answer that carried a lifetime of pain. I told her myself, he said. Because the king of the Wanderers was someone from Kim Dokja's real life, someone he had personally told about the future, someone bound to him by a history so painful that seeing her shook him more than any monster. You told someone this boring story? Swyong asked. I mean, Why? Because I needed something when I was with her, Dokja admitted. And I couldn't think of any other topic of conversation then. In those few words is a whole tragedy, a boy who could only connect with someone from his past by reciting the plot of a novel, because there was nothing else safe to say between them. Swyong pushed. I don't know how you know her, she said, but shouldn't we do something about them? If there are others besides us who know the future. But Kim Dokja would not go there, not yet. What's important now is this, he deflected, turning away from the wound. I'm going to awaken it. He could not face the king of the wanderers. So he faced a fallen star instead. The meteorite the wanderers had given him was no ordinary rock. This surge of mana just from touching it, he marveled, and the glimmering light coming from within. It's just as I've read in the novel. The Moon Stone. That's what this meteorite is called. It was once an asteroid that used to orbit the stars of other dimensions. This yellow meteorite holds the power to counter the oncoming catastrophe. A stone from another world, carrying the power to hold back the disasters of the fifth scenario. And it offered him a gift. The Moon Stone offers to evolve you to the next level. But Kim Dokja refused. I'd evolve into a werewolf if I were to accept its power, he thought. But there's more to the meteorite than this. He didn't want to become a monster. He wanted what was sleeping inside. So he and Swyong set to awakening it, and the process was long and delicate. I'm going to infuse the meteorite with my mana, Dokja explained. We should be done in 10 hours according to my calculations. 4 hours from me and 6 from you. Why do I have to do it for 6? Swyong protested. Isn't your mana level higher than mine? Be honest, Dokja said, what level is your mana stat? Level 55, she admitted. And Dokja was floored. 55, he thought. I suspected it'd be at least 40 from the number of avatars she had, but I didn't expect it to be this high. She must have spent all her coins on mana. It was another sign of just how formidable Swyong Han really was, a reader who had quietly built herself into a powerhouse. They took turns, hour after hour, pouring their magic into the stone, drinking premium mana potions to keep going, waiting for the fallen star to wake. And 10 hours later, it did. Crack. Crack. Hey, get up, Swyong cried. This thing's moving. The Moon Stone split open, and the system rang with wonder. For the first time in the scenario, you have encountered a being from another world. Affinity toward other world species has increased. You have obtained the skill, Otherworld Interpreter. Because what emerged was not a monster. It was a god. A colossal figure, over 3 meters tall, a towering wolf-headed warrior wreathed in ancient power. And when it spoke, the system began translating its words from a language of another world entirely. I am one of the 5 ruling species of Kronos, the being declared. A world where one transforms at night, drawing the power of the Moon Stone. I am the great first wolf. In Kronos, they are called Impunter. I am Impunter, Lycaon. A being from a distant world, one of 5 great guardian species, a warrior of the wind with monstrous strength and stamina. And he had come for a purpose. Because the 5th scenario, Kim Dokja knew, features 5 catastrophes, and 5 scenario guides that lend their strength to stop the catastrophes. And one of those guides was Lycaon, the first wolf, hatched from a fallen star to help a doomed world survive. Lycaon addressed them like the guide he was, with a strange mix of solemnity and swagger. "Congratulations on completing the tutorial scenario, warriors of the other world," he said. Tutorial, my ass, Dokja thought, because there was nothing tutorial about the horrors they'd survived. "Listen, you who are about to welcome destruction," Lycaon continued. "First of all, I am sorry that your world has come to face a catastrophe. But fear not, for I am here. I am a guide who will help you stop the world from ending. I will train you for the coming catastrophe, and teach you all you need to know." It was, on its face, wonderful news, a powerful ally, a divine trainer, a guide sent specifically to help humanity survive the disasters ahead. But then Lycaon noticed something was wrong. "Wait, are you the only ones who've awakened me?" he asked. "That's right," Dokja said. "That's strange," the wolf god frowned. "Did you not clear the fourth scenario? Because there was supposed to be a proper order to all this. Originally, Lycaon explained, the guides were meant to gather at the ruler's throne once someone claimed it. If you completed the scenario properly, all the guides, including myself, should have hatched at the same location. Where is the owner of the ruler's throne?" And Kim Dokja and Swyong exchanged a look, because there was no owner. "We do not have a king," Dokja said. "You don't," Lycaon said, alarmed. "Did your king die?" "That can't be. There shouldn't be anyone powerful enough to kill the one on the ruler's throne at this point. No one's claimed the throne to begin with," Dokja clarified. "What do you mean?" the guide demanded, unable to comprehend it. "Because in every world Lycaon had ever guided, someone always claimed the throne. It was the foundation of the entire plan to survive the catastrophes. A world without a king on the ruler's throne was not supposed to be possible." And then Kim Dokja told him the truth. "We completed the fourth scenario," he said, "without obtaining the ruler's throne." Lycaon flinched. "What?" he said. "You are lying. Because it should not have been possible." But Dokja pressed on, and the horror dawned on the great wolf. "There's a way to destroy the throne too," Dokja admitted. "All these constellations," Lycaon breathed, "the pieces coming together. Did you by any chance?" "That's right," Dokja confirmed. He had not just failed to claim the throne. He had destroyed it. He had unmade the seat of power that every guide, every plan, every hope of stopping the catastrophes was built around. And Lycaon's reaction told Kim Dokja that his greatest, proudest decision might have been a terrible mistake. "How?" the wolf god managed, grit in his voice. "How could you do such a thing?" "How?" Because to Kim Dokja, destroying the throne had been an act of principle, a refusal to become a tyrant, a choice for a world without a king. But to Lycaon, whose entire purpose depended on that throne existing, it was a catastrophe in itself. The guides were meant to rally around a king. The strength to stop the 5 disasters was meant to flow through that seat of power. And Kim Dokja had torn it apart with his own hands, leaving the world defenseless in a way no one had anticipated. This is one of the great tensions at the heart of Omniscient Reader. Kim Dokja is a reader who knows the story, but he is not bound by it. He keeps making choices that bend the narrative away from its expected path, destroying the throne, refusing the crown, saving people who were meant to die. And every time, those choices ripple outward in ways even he cannot fully predict. His refusal to become a king was noble and true to who he is. But nobility has a price, and now a divine guide stood before him, horrified, demanding to know how he could have unmade the very thing the world needed to survive. Kim Dokja had turned away from the deepest wound of his past, the masked king he could not bring himself to face, and thrown himself instead into awakening a fallen star. He had gained a god as an ally, a wolf warrior from another world sworn to help humanity stop the coming disasters. But that same ally had just revealed that Kim Dokja's proudest act, destroying the ruler's throne, had thrown the entire plan to save the world into chaos. 5 catastrophes were coming. 5 guides were meant to rally around a king who no longer existed. And the survival scenario ground on, 10 days in a ruined city, a demon king hunting his ally, and a mother he could not face waiting somewhere in the north. The loneliest reader in the world stood before a horrified god, the weight of his own choices bearing down on him. His story, as always, was only just beginning. A god from another world stood before Kim Dokja, ready to condemn him for destroying the throne. But that same god was about to bow to him instead, because Kim Dokja had already, without knowing it, killed the monster that had destroyed the god's entire world. And what followed was one of the most inspiring things in the whole story, a man with no natural talent teaching a divine skill to the very god who invented it. Lycaon's despair was total. How could you do such a thing? The wolf god raged at the destroyed throne. Do you know what you've done? This world is over. Because without a king on the throne, the guides had no anchor, and the plan to stop the catastrophes had collapsed. Oh, how the constellations of the star stream have forsaken Kronos, Lycaon mourned. And Kim Dokja began to understand that these guides were not the pure altruists they seemed. The other worlders act as if they were sent over to help us, he realized, but they have an ulterior motive. Because Lycaon was not from Earth at all. He was Lycaon Isparang, prince of the Impunter, and the Impunter were the ruling species of Kronos, a world that the 5 catastrophes had already destroyed. He had watched his own home burn, and now he'd come to Earth to stop the same disaster from happening again, partly to save humanity, and partly because he had nowhere else to go. And then Lycaon named the monster that had ended his world. The southern part of Kronos where you're from was destroyed by the dragon, he said. Fire Dragon Ignir. The catastrophe from the flaming depths of hell. It is the creature that destroyed your world. You seem to be taking this too lightly. Your bodies will soon be writhing in the flames of hell. But Kim Dokja answered with the flattest possible confidence. What, he said. I've already killed it. Don't you worry about that. Ignir won't be coming to our world. Because Kim Dokja had, chapters earlier, slain the lesser dragon Ignir, the fire dragon that hatched at the night of the prophets. And it turned out that dragon was one of the 5 catastrophes of the 5th scenario. The math was startling. The fire dragon you killed counts as one of the 5 catastrophes, the system confirmed. Even though it was a minor one. Correct. So we only have to stop 4 catastrophes now, Dokja realized, not 5. Because the lesser dragon had come out instead of the true Ignir, and killing it had cleared one of the 5 great disasters before the scenario even properly began. How does it count as one of the 5 catastrophes if it's not even the real thing? Swyam wondered. Is this one of the plot conveniences in the novel? Anything hatched from the meteorites counts as a catastrophe, Dokja explained. It was a stroke of luck disguised as foresight. Kim Dokja had killed a world-ending monster without even knowing what it was, and in doing so had lightened the burden of the entire scenario. And that kill had given him something precious. I received the protection symbol of Impunter, he recalled, for defeating the fire dragon at Anguk Station. I almost died then, but things turned out for the better. Because when Lycaon saw that symbol, everything changed. Pay your respects before the symbol of protection, the wolf god said, and his fury melted into reverence. "Great Dragon Hunter," he said, bowing to the unremarkable man before him, "may I have the honor of knowing your name?" "My name is Dokja Kim," the reader answered. And just like that, the god who had been ready to condemn him became his devoted servant, because Kim Dokja had accidentally become the slayer of the beast that murdered Lycaon's world. But there was a limit to what Lycaon could do. "Whoa, he looks strong," someone said. "Will he fight for us, though?" "No. The guides can't fight against the catastrophes of the worlds they don't belong in," Dokja knew. "And he's quite a coward. Lycaon could not slay the disasters himself. What he could do was teach." "I'm ready, Master," the wolf god declared. "Can you call me something else than Master?" Dokja groaned. "It sounds so weird." "So he says, Master," Lycaon repeated, ignoring him entirely. And so a god became a trainer, and Kim Dokja became his reluctant student. "I will teach you the skill that has been passed down through generations of the Impunter," Lycaon announced. "The way of the wind." Because the catastrophes spawned in the 5 directions of Seoul, north, east, south, west, and center, and with the southern dragon already dead, the first to come would be the catastrophe of the east. And to stop it, Kim Dokja needed the way of the wind, the sacred skill of the wolf people, the entire reason he had awakened Lycaon in the first place. "Let us begin," the wolf god said. And here the chapter becomes something wonderful, because learning the way of the wind was nearly impossible, and watching Kim Dokja struggle is both hilarious and deeply moving. "Tempest in the left hand, and storm in the right," Lycaon intoned. "The way of the wind will open up where the straight and the curved meet." It was pure poetic gibberish. "How am I supposed to do that?" Dokja demanded. "I'm sorry," Lycaon said, "but you explained it just now. I couldn't have put it better myself." "No, this is a metaphor." "It's a metaphor, you just do as you've said." The instructions were riddles wrapped in metaphors, the kind of maddening mysticism that fills a certain kind of fantasy novel. "This is driving me nuts," Dokja seethed. "All the instructions in the novel are written in gibberish like this. One wind meets the other to form Taeguk, and again the wind meets the other to form Yin and Yang." It was beautiful and completely useless as a set of instructions. And Kim Dokja could not do it. For 2 whole days, he tried and failed. "Why can't I do it?" he despaired. "Because you're hopeless," Lycaon said bluntly. "You've been at this for 2 days. It's about time you gave up." And here the story lands its recurring, painful truth about Kim Dokja. But Junghyuk mastered this skill in 5 minutes, he thought. Because Yoo Junghyuk, the true protagonist, the naturally gifted hero, had learned this same skill almost instantly. And Kim Dokja, after 2 full days, still couldn't manage it. "What do you mean?" Lycaon said when Dokja mentioned the hero. "You're not even the main character." That line cuts to the bone, because it's true. Kim Dokja is not the main character. He has no special talent, no innate genius, no protagonist's gift. Everything he achieves the hard way, through relentless, stubborn, exhausting effort. The self-doubt crept in. "Have you been fooling yourself into thinking you're Junghyuk since you've done well lately?" he asked himself. "Of course, everything's much easier said than done. If I don't think of something, the world might end because of me." He was a man carrying the fate of the world on his shoulders, failing at the one skill that could save it, painfully aware that the real hero would have solved this in minutes. It's a moment of genuine humility, and it's why Kim Dokja is such a beloved protagonist. He is not powerful because he was born special. He is powerful because he refuses to quit. And then, on the 3rd day, something clicked. Because Kim Dokja was a reader, and readers understand metaphors better than anyone. He stopped trying to follow the instructions literally and started interpreting them, the way he'd interpret a difficult passage in a novel. One wind meets the other to form taeguk, he reasoned, and again, the wind meets the other to form yin and yang. And suddenly he wasn't just performing the skill. He was understanding it, at a level even deeper than the wolf god who taught it. How? Lycaon gasped. How did you make such profound interpretations? Quit your yapping and show me. And Kim Dokja showed him. Whoosh. So, this is how it's done, he said. The four winds meet to form a fortification, and the four winds meet again in the shape of a trigram, making it so that there is wind everywhere and nowhere. And it worked. The way of the wind bloomed around him, more elegant and complete than Lycaon had ever seen it performed. How's this even possible? The wolf god breathed. Because Kim Dokja had not merely learned the ancient skill. He had elevated it, reinterpreted it, found a depth in it that generations of impunter had missed. Wait, how about this? Dokja laughed, riffing now, improvising, pushing the skill further and further. Ha ha ha. And here comes the beautiful reversal. Because the god who had come to teach the human was now being taught by him. Master, Lycaon stammered, overwhelmed. How's this even possible? One wind meets the other to form taeguk, and again the wind meets the other to form yin and yang. The four winds meet to form a fortification, making it so that there is wind everywhere and nowhere. How about it? Dokja said. You can, Lycaon marveled. That's exactly how I feel. And the wolf god, the ancient prince of the impunter, was moved to tears by the human's insight. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, he said. The system confirmed it. Tier 5 humanoid demon Lycaon, prince of the impunter, has had an epiphany. You have guided Lycaon, the prince of impunter, to a new plane of enlightenment. Lycaon is grateful to you. Think about what just happened. Kim Dokja, the man with no talent, the man who is not the main character, the man who took 2 days to learn what the hero learned in 5 minutes, did not just catch up. He surpassed the teacher. He brought a god to enlightenment. Because Kim Dokja's gift was never raw talent. It was depth. It was the reader's ability to understand a thing so completely that he could see further into it than the people who created it. Yu Junghyuk could perform the skill. Kim Dokja could understand it, and in understanding it, transcend it. This is the quiet thesis of the whole story. The world keeps telling Kim Dokja that he is nobody special, that he is not the hero, that he is just a reader. And over, he proves that being a reader, understanding a story deeply enough to see its hidden meanings, is its own kind of power, one that even protagonists and gods cannot match. He was not born to save the world. He read his way to it. The constellations noticed. A few constellations from the perished world of Kronos expressed their gratitude, gifting him coins. Baihyong returned with the usual mockery, so why'd you destroy the throne, idiot? The prisoner of the golden headband was amazed by how pathetic he was, and the secretive plotter was disappointed by his carelessness. But it didn't matter, because Kim Dokja had gained a god's devotion, cleared one catastrophe by luck and foresight, and mastered the sacred skill he needed for the disaster to come. Remaining days, 8. The survival scenario ground on, for catastrophes still waiting in the 4 directions of Seoul, and a masked king he still could not face somewhere in the north. Kim Dokja had turned a god's condemnation into a god's devotion, learned an impossible skill through nothing but stubborn effort, and elevated it beyond even its ancient masters. He was not the main character. He would never be. But he was the reader who understood the story better than anyone alive, and that understanding kept turning his weaknesses into strengths. The catastrophe of the East was coming, and this time Kim Dokja would be ready for it, wind at his fingertips and a wolf prince at his side. His story, as always, was only just beginning. The strongest man in the world, the hero who trusted no one and needed no one, came crawling to Kim Dokja, poisoned and dying. He could have gone anywhere. He could have died and simply started over. Instead, Yoo Jung-hyuk dragged his broken body across a ruined city to find the one person he'd never once called a friend. And that choice tells you more about their bond than any battle ever could. But first, there was a problem. Kim Dokja had learned the way of the wind, but he'd realized the true plan required Yoo Jung-hyuk too. Because only those with the protection symbol of Impunter could learn the skill, and in the original novel, it was Jung-hyuk who was meant to learn it. "Why don't you let me learn it instead?" Swyong offered. "No way," Dokja said. "Only those with the protection symbol can learn the way of the wind. The ownership of the symbol can't be transferred." Which meant they needed to find the regressor, and fast. "Let's go look for him while we still can," Dokja decided. "We can just make him stronger and get through this." There was only one hitch. Jung-hyuk doesn't listen to others, Swyong noted. "I'll seduce him," she offered breezily. "What?" Dokja said, and even he had no response to that. But when they found Yoo Jung-hyuk, he was in no state to be seduced or reasoned with. "He's severely injured," Dokja realized. "Help, please," the hero was calling, and that alone was staggering. Because Yoo Jung-hyuk never asked for help. Ever. The constellations grew pushy, urging Dokja to save the wounded man, the demonic judge of fire looking forward to their camaraderie. And Swyong, sharp as ever, immediately suspected a setup. "It was you, wasn't it?" she accused Dokja. "Didn't you activate a sub-scenario to bring him here? The timing's too perfect to call this a mere coincidence." "Was it me?" Dokja thought innocently, neither confirming nor denying. They debated what to do. "We have to save him, right?" Swyong said. "He's the main character. But if we do you have anything to restrain him? Because a healthy Yoo Jung-hyuk was a threat. It won't work on him," Dokja knew. "Then what if we keep him locked up somewhere? Then he'll just kill himself. I guess he can just regress. But what happens to you if he dies?" It was a genuine dilemma. The regressor was invaluable, but he was also dangerous, capable of killing them or simply resetting the world if things went badly. "That's why we should stop him," someone argued. "No one knows what could happen." And then Yoo Jung-hyuk woke up, saw Kim Dokja, and glared with murderous fury. Because the last time they'd met, Kim Dokja had beaten him unconscious with 100 strength. Glare. "Ah," Dokja panicked. "Has he been like this ever since I punched him 2 days ago?" Thump. Thump. "Oh, man, I'm done for." "Hey, can't you just let it go already?" he pleaded. "It was a fair fight, don't hold it against me. You tried to kill me too." And in that moment of terror, Kim Dokja voiced the exhausted complaint he'd been carrying all series. Why does the main character of the novel have to be someone like him, he thought. If Hyun Seong or Hui-won were the main character. Because the actual hero of the story was a cold, ruthless, murderous regressor, and Kim Dokja was the one who had to deal with him. But something was wrong with Yoo Jung-hyuk, deeper than his injuries. Level 2 of Omniscient Reader's viewpoint activated. Did he just call my name? Dokja thought. Dokja Kim. And his skill revealed the truth. Character Summary. Name, Jung-hyuk. This character is currently suffering from a status ailment. This character is suffering from 1,000 spirit poison. A status ailment, Dokja realized. He must have been poisoned. And this was significant, because the 1,000-spirit poison was Yu Junghyuk's one true weakness in his early rounds, a poison that could bring down even the strongest man alive. And through the haze of the venom, the hero had kept repeating one thing. He kept telling me, someone reported, to take him to you, Mr. Dokja. Take him to Kim Dokja. That is the line that matters. Because you. Junghyuk, poisoned and dying, with his resuscitation skill failing him, had not tried to save himself. He had not tried to regress. He had dragged himself, one agonizing step at a time, toward the one person he believed could help him. The proud hero who never needed anyone had, in his most desperate hour, chosen Kim Dokja. It was the closest thing to an admission of trust the regressor was capable of, and it was devastating precisely because he would never say it out loud. So Kim Dokja saved him. Strange, he thought, examining the hero. With this much damage, his resuscitation skill should have kicked in. If he's really been poisoned with the 1,000-spirit, Elaine Forest essence alone won't be enough to cure him. What are you making? Swyong asked. An antidote, Dokja said. So you've decided to help him? He opened the Dakibi shop and bought everything he needed, Old Barbara's branch, Novice Dalton's horn, detox potato, Enter Temple's purification water, Elaine Forest essence. You have spent a total of 7,370 coins. A small fortune, spent without hesitation, to save a man who had just glared at him with murder in his eyes. And when Swyong questioned it, Kim Dokja explained his faith in the regressor. I think he came to me on purpose, he said. On purpose, why? Maybe he came to ask for help. I don't think he came all this way in that state to kill you. There's no way he'd do that. How do you know? She asked. I just do, Dokja said. That's the kind of person he is. Because Kim Dokja had read Yu Junghyuk's entire life, all 3,000 chapters of it. He knew this man better than the man knew himself. And he knew that beneath the cold fury and the killing intent, Yu Junghyuk had come to him because, on some level he'd never admit, he trusted Kim Dokja to save him. You two would make a great couple, Swyong teased. The demonic judge of fire was moved by his act of kindness. Then Kim Dokja did something clever, and quietly tender. He needed to talk to Yu Junghyuk privately, but the poison had paralyzed the hero's tongue, and Kim Dokja had reasons to keep the conversation secret. So he bought a special item. Midday rendezvous, the system announced. It's an item that you can use to have a private conversation with a chosen target for a given time. He used it for 3 reasons, because Junghyuk's tongue was paralyzed and couldn't speak aloud, because he didn't want Junghyuk to know that he could read the hero's mind, and to prevent Swyong Han from stealing the intel. If I had more coins, he thought, I would have learnt the telepathy skill. A private channel opened between the two of them, a quiet space where reader and hero could finally speak. Dokja Kim, hey, can you hear me? Dokja sent through the channel. And Yu Junghyuk accepted. Good, he accepted, Dokja thought. And then the hero, even flat on his back and poisoned, even after Kim Dokja had just spent a fortune saving his life, immediately started giving orders. Go east immediately, Junghyuk commanded. He's ordering me around when I've just saved his life, Dokja thought, incredulous. It was so perfectly, infuriatingly Yu Junghyuk. But the order carried a warning that chilled the air. The catastrophe of questions is about to wake up, the hero said. The Eastern catastrophe, the first disaster of the 5th scenario, was stirring. And then Junghyuk delivered the line that turned everything ominous. Someone is waking all the catastrophes. Someone is waking all the catastrophes. What? Dokja thought, the words landing heavy. Because the disasters of the 5th scenario were not supposed to come all at once. They were meant to spawn in their own time, one per direction, spread out. But someone, some deliberate hand, was deliberately awakening them, accelerating the apocalypse, pushing the world toward destruction faster than the story ever intended. It was sabotage on a cosmic scale, and it meant that behind the catastrophes was a mind, a will, an enemy actively trying to end the world. And that enemy had already begun in the East, where a cathedral loomed and a masked figure waited, and the catastrophe of questions prepared to open its eyes. This chapter captures the strange, deep bond at the heart of Omniscient reader. Yoo Jung-hyuk and Kim Dokja are not friends, not in any normal sense. They threaten each other, fight each other, distrust each other. And yet, when the hero was dying, he crawled to the reader. And when the hero was saved, the reader hid his own tenderness behind clever items and complaints. Neither of them can say what they mean to each other. So they say it in actions instead, a poisoned man choosing where to die, a reader spending his fortune to prevent it, a warning passed through a secret channel between two people who would never admit how much they'd come to rely on each other. Kim Dokja had saved the strongest man in the world, and in return received a warning that reframed the entire scenario. This was no longer just about surviving 5 natural disasters. Someone was deliberately waking them, driving the world toward its end, and the first of them, the catastrophe of questions, was rising in the East right now. 8 days remained in the survival scenario. Yoo Jung-hyuk lay poisoned but alive, having placed his life in Kim Dokja's hands. And somewhere in a distant cathedral, the first deliberate catastrophe stirred. The loneliest reader in the world gathered himself, the way of the wind at his fingertips and a hero's trust in his heart, and turned east toward the waking disaster. His story, as always, was only just beginning. The enemy waiting in the east was not just a monster. She was the poison beauty, one of the 10 evils, and she had once been the love of Yoo Jung-hyuk's life. In a past regression, she had been his companion, his lover, his person. Now she was a stranger who had tried to kill him. This chapter is about the deepest loneliness of the regressor, the curse of a man who watches everyone he loves become someone he no longer knows. But first, Kim Dokja secured his own safety. Because Yoo Jung-hyuk had sworn to punch him back for the beating, and Kim Dokja did not trust a murderous hero to stop at one punch. So through the private midday rendezvous channel, he made a demand. "I'll help you if you agree to an oath of existence," he said. "Pledge that you won't kill me until the end of this regression." Jung-hyuk refused. What a prick, Dokja thought. So he negotiated down. "At least swear you won't kill me until the end of the 5th scenario." And finally, reluctantly, the hero agreed. "I swear," Jung-hyuk said. Flare. Oath of existence. It's an oath that you take on yourself. If you break the oath, you'll be killed by the blue flame that engulfs your heart. A binding vow, enforced by death itself. "I can't believe he made me do this," Jung-hyuk seethed. And still, pettily, he clung to his revenge. "I'll get you back for hitting me," he said. "Just one punch, okay? You have to go easy on me." Even bound by an oath, the strongest man in the world wanted his one punch. Then the true scale of the 5th scenario revealed itself, and it was staggering. Because this was not a scenario of monsters. It was a scenario of invading worlds. It looks like Kronos has started terraforming, Dokja realized. The 5th scenario is a battle between different worlds. Humans must fight off an invasion from another world. Just as Seoul is being terraformed into Kronos, the Wolf World, China is being invaded by the 3rd Wuxia World, and Japan will be invaded by the White Demon World. Entire foreign realities were bleeding into Earth, overriding it, transforming the planet into alien landscapes ruled by alien laws. And Seoul was becoming Kronos, its streets sprouting monstrous plants, its ruins crawling with creatures from a world of wolves. Everywhere we go, it's infested, Dokja muttered. The terraforming should have sped up since the catastrophe's awakening. And through the private channel, Yu Junghyuk kept talking, revealing more than he ever had before. This was, Kim Dokja realized, the first real conversation he'd ever had with the hero. You probably destroyed the throne to block off the other world too, Junghyuk surmised. And Dokja was quietly impressed. This is my first time having a serious conversation with him, he thought. But aside from being cool, was he always this smart? The regressor understood, better than anyone, the true consequences of Kim Dokja's choices. Because you destroyed the throne, he explained, the guides had been scattered all over the place, and there's a setback in collecting the meteorites. That's why the terraforming sped up. Kim Dokja's proud act of defiance had rippled outward in ways he was only now fully grasping, and the one person who understood it completely was the hero he'd saved. Then came the poison, and the tragedy behind it. Because Yu Junghyuk had been struck down by the 1,000-spirit poison, and only one person in this world wielded it. Don't tell me it's the poison beauty, Sealwa Lee, Dokja said. One of the 10 evils, a master of poisons, the ruler of the Eastern catastrophe. But she was so much more than an enemy, and the reveal is one of the most quietly heartbreaking in the whole story. Because the poison beauty, Sealwa Lee, was not only Yu Junghyuk's companion in his second regression. She was also his lover. His lover. Kim Dokja knew it, because he had read it. In a past life, in a world long erased, Sealwa Lee had loved Yu Junghyuk and he had loved her. And now, in this regression, she was one of the 10 evils, and she had poisoned him and left him to die. She's the only one who could use that poison, Junghyuk said. I tried to talk to her. He had gone to her, the woman he remembered loving, and tried to reach her. She wasn't the Sealwa I knew, he admitted. But I wanted to believe, even for a moment, that she was still the same woman of my memories. This is the curse of the regressor, laid utterly bare. Yu Junghyuk has lived 1,000 lives, and in each one, he meets the same people again and again. But they are never the same. The friends who died for him in one life become strangers in the next. The woman who loved him in one regression becomes an enemy who poisons him in another. He carries the memory of every bond he's ever formed, but no one else remembers. He alone holds the weight of 1,000 lifetimes of love and loss, and every time he starts over, he has to watch the people he cherished become people he no longer knows. He tried to talk to Sealwa because some part of him hoped. And she poisoned him for it. That is a loneliness so vast it's almost unbearable to imagine. And here Kim Dokja did something no one else in any world could do. He understood. Because he had read Yu Junghyuk's entire life, he knew the man's every grief, every loss, every buried tenderness. He's never been understood by anyone, Dokja thought, watching the hero, nor will he in the future. Character Junghyuk has been deeply shaken. And Kim Dokja, the reader who alone knew the truth of this man, offered him a small, quiet consolation. He didn't kidnap Sealwa or force the issue. He simply let Junghyuk know, in his own careful way, that his feelings were seen. Character Junghyuk has received a little consolation, the system reported. For a man who had never once been understood, that small acknowledgement meant more than any cure. Strange, Junghyuk said, you're definitely not a regressor. Is that one of your abilities as a prophet? Because he could not comprehend how this stranger seemed to know his heart. So shouldn't it be fine for me to tell him at least that, Dokja wondered, tempted to reveal how much he truly knew. But he held back. Some truths were too dangerous to share, even with the hero he was slowly, secretly coming to care for. Pathetic, Jung-hyuk muttered of himself, ashamed of his own weakness. If I knew what he does in the 8th round, Dokja thought, he wouldn't be able to say that. Because Kim Dokja knew the full measure of this man's strength and his suffering, and to him, there was nothing pathetic about a hero who still hoped, even after 1,000 betrayals. They reached the Poison Beauty's territory, and it was heavily defended. We've arrived at Poison Beauty's territory, Dokja noted. She's moving faster than expected. Looking at their defenses, I can tell that this isn't going to be easy. The plan was simple and dangerous. Do you have a plan? Swyong asked. We only need to steal the meteorite, Dokja said. I'll hold them at bay while you go grab it. They had to seize the eastern meteorite before the catastrophe fully awoke, right out from under one of the 10 evils. But even now, Jung-hyuk couldn't let go of his wounded pride. Through the channel, he'd realized Kim Dokja had learned the way of the wind, the skill that was supposed to be his. You probably already woke the guide and learned the path of the wind, he accused. I didn't learn it, Dokja lied, then admitted the truth wrapped in self-deprecation. No, it's because I don't have the talent. Because in the novel, it was Yu Jung-hyuk who mastered the way of the wind, and Kim Dokja had taken that path for himself. If you had just let me, Jung-hyuk grumbled. There's people, Dokja noticed, and I can feel his glare on the back of my head. Even riding along as a helpless avatar, the hero found the energy to be annoyed that Kim Dokja had stolen his skill. Then the ambush hit. Run towards Kyeonho-daegyo, everyone, Dokja shouted as the Poison Beauty's forces attacked. Move it, hurry. Zoom. Whoosh. Pow. Smack. Splat. And then the deadliest weapon of all. His wound is changing color, someone gasped. Poison arrows, Dokja realized. Get the enemy cried, unleashing a volley of venom-tipped arrows, each one carrying the Poison Beauty's lethal toxins. A storm of poison descending on Kim Dokja and the fleeing survivors. And this was the moment. Because Kim Dokja had spent 2 grueling days learning a skill that even a god thought he had no talent for. He had struggled and failed and finally understood it more deeply than its own masters. And now, facing a rain of poison arrows, he unleashed it. The way of the wind. Flash. Whoosh. Golden light exploded from his hands, wind weaving itself into an intricate, shimmering web, a lattice of pure air that caught the poison arrows and turned them aside. The 4 winds meeting to form a fortification, wind everywhere and nowhere, exactly as he had reinterpreted it. A brilliant golden barrier of wind bloomed across the battlefield, and the deadly volley shattered against it. It was the payoff of everything. The 2 days of failure, the humiliation of being told he had no talent, the comparison to a hero who learned it in 5 minutes, all of it culminated in this single radiant moment. Kim Dokja, the man who was not the main character, wielding the sacred skill of the wolf people to shield the innocent from a storm of poison. The reader who had no gift had become, through sheer relentless effort and a reader's deep understanding, someone who could do the impossible. Flash. The golden wind blazed, and even Yu Jung-hyuk, watching from the back of his mind, could not deny what he was seeing. Kim Dokja had bound a murderous hero with an oath, uncovered the world-devouring scale of the 5th scenario, and glimpsed the deepest wound of the loneliest man alive, a regressor forced to fight the woman he once loved. He had offered that hero the one thing no one else ever had, understanding. And now, at the threshold of the Eastern catastrophe, facing one of the 10 evils and a rain of poison, he had unleashed the way of the wind in a blaze of golden light. The Poison Beauty waited within her territory. The meteorite waited to be seized. And the tragedy of Yu Junghyuk and Sealwa Lee hung over it all like a held breath. The loneliest reader in the world stood wreathed in golden wind, an impossible skill made real by nothing but his refusal to give up. His story, as always, was only just beginning. A woman descended from the sky on threads of golden light, and cut down an army of poison wielders as if they were nothing. Kim Dokja knew her. She was Yu Sanga, the quiet office worker who had once guided his group through labyrinths. But the woman flying above him now was something else entirely, impossibly powerful, and her sudden strength was a mystery even Kim Dokja couldn't solve. This is the chapter where an old friend returns transformed, and a villain finds redemption in death. The poison arrows had barely been turned aside by the way of the wind when something new tore through the sky. "There's something below us," a survivor cried. "That woman." And Kim Dokja looked up to see a figure descending on shimmering golden threads, weaving through the air like a spider dancing on light. He activated his skill, and the result was telling. This person's profile cannot be browsed using character profile. This character does not have a registered character profile. A sealed profile, the mark of someone significant. "Is that Sanga?" Dokja breathed. Because it was. Yu Sanga had returned, and she was flying. "She's flying," someone gasped. Whoosh. Crack. And then she went to work. Yank. Slash. 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 Using her golden threads like blades and tethers both, Sanga descended on the poison beauty's forces and dismantled them. Where Kim Dokja had struggled just to hold the line, Sanga cut through the enemy ranks with terrifying grace. And Kim Dokja could only stare. "Is that really the Sanga I know?" he thought. "How did she get so strong?" Because the quiet, gentle woman he remembered had become a warrior of impossible power, and it made no sense at all. Is it because she has the talent, he wondered, echoing his own recent struggles. Kill her, the enemy screamed, but they had no chance. The reunion, when it came, was oddly tender and awkward all at once. "Sanga, this way," Dokja called. And Yu Junghyuk, still riding along, added his usual warning. "You better watch out for that woman," he muttered. "Sanga, are you all right?" Dokja asked. "I'm fine," she said. "What about you?" "I'm okay too." And then a strange silence fell. "Awkward," the panel practically announced. "What the?" Dokja thought. "We've only been apart for a few days, why are things so awkward?" It's a lovely small moment, two people who care about each other, reunited after danger, suddenly shy and uncertain, not knowing quite how to bridge the days they'd spent apart. And what days they'd been. Because Sanga had a story of her own. "When I opened my eyes after being transported," she explained, "I was in Gangdong-gu with Pildu." "You were with Pildu," Dokja said, surprised. "Yes, he helped me out a lot. Pildu Gong, the landlord, the tyrant of Chungmuro, one of the 10 evils." "They seem to have gotten close," Dokja noted, seeing as how she's calling him by name now. "Where did he go?" he asked. And Sanga's answer carried real weight. "We got separated when we were fighting against the Gangdong-gu group," she said. "Pildu lured them toward the Han River at the last minute. He lured them away, sacrificing his own safety to give Sanga a chance to escape. And here is one of the quiet, beautiful things weak hero, and omniscient reader, both understand about people. Pildu Gong was a villain. He had extorted the weak, ruled through cruelty, earned his place among the 10 evils. And yet, when it mattered, he chose to save Sanga. I can't believe he died saving someone, Dokja marveled. After all, he was one of the 10 evils. It was because he was trying to save me, Sangha said softly. Because the man Kim Dokja had conquered and contracted, the tyrant he'd forced to fight for others, had in the end chosen sacrifice over survival. Redemption, in this story, is never simple or complete. But even a villain can find one moment of grace, and Pilda Gong found his in the choice to protect the woman who had shown him what it meant to be part of something larger than himself. Sangha's strength, though, remained a mystery, and it nagged at Kim Dokja. After we got separated, she said, I came across a green meteorite. A green meteorite, Dokja realized. The green meteorite holds rare items. She was lucky to have come across it so early. It explained some of her new gear, some of her power. But not all of it. Is that really everything? He pressed. Because the numbers didn't add up. Let's say you got the items by pure luck, he reasoned. But those items alone couldn't have made you that strong. Something else was going on with you, Sangha, something she wasn't fully explaining. And Swyong Han, ever suspicious, pushed harder. Who's your supporting constellation? She demanded. How did you level up your eagle movement and reinforced knife fighting skills so quickly? That's not possible even with a growth package. Because leveling up that fast should have been impossible. There's no way she can improve herself that fast, Dokja thought, even with a fabled supporting constellation. Unless she has an SSS-grade growth skill. But how many constellations can provide something like that? In Korea, of all places. An SSS-grade growth skill was among the rarest gifts in the entire story, and the idea that Quiet Yu Sangha possessed one was staggering. There were clues in how she moved. That movement looked like it was Hermes' stroll, Dokja observed, noting the godlike grace of her steps. But if her supporting constellation is Hermes, she wouldn't be able to use Hermes' stigma. And the golden threads. Seeing her use the magic thread, he thought, I thought her supporting constellation was Ariadne, lover of the abandoned labyrinth. Ariadne, the mythological princess who gave the hero a thread to escape the labyrinth. The golden threads that Sangha wove through the air like a spider's web. It fit, and yet it didn't fully explain her power either. Yu Sangha, it seemed, was hiding a secret as deep as Kim Dokja's own, bound by some pledge that sealed her true nature away, and even the reader who knew everything couldn't quite piece it together. This is one of the delightful tensions of omniscient reader. Kim Dokja knows the story. He knows almost everything. But the world keeps diverging from the novel he read, and people keep becoming more than their pages ever described. Sangha was second in command of the Chungyuro group in his absence, a leader, a fighter, a woman with a hidden constellation and a growth no one could explain. She's not an enemy, Dokja insisted when Swyong grew wary. And he believed it. But even he had to admit, something about Yu Sangha had changed in ways he could not fully account for, and that mystery would matter. Then Bai Hyung returned, and with it, the pressure of the scenario. Hello, everyone, the Dakibi crowed. How have you been? And it delivered a new challenge. Sub-scenario, Stop the Catastrophe, has arrived. Because the enemy, the Poison Beauties group, was actively trying to wake the Eastern catastrophe, and if they succeeded, disaster would come early. We still have a week to go until the start of the scenario, Bai Hyung explained, but a lot of you are waking the catastrophes. You must be dying to play the next scenario. And so, half reluctantly, the Dakibi handed down the mission. How can I not give you a scenario and still call myself a Dakibi, it said. The catastrophes will be hatching soon. The stakes were sharp. Sub-scenario, stop the catastrophe. Difficulty, S, clear condition, a mysterious group that calls Gangdong-gu home is trying to wake one of the catastrophes. Get rid of them and stop the catastrophe from waking. Time limit, 2 hours. Reward, 22,000 coins. Penalty for failure, the catastrophe of questions will appear sooner than scheduled. 2 hours to stop the Poison Beauties group, or the Eastern catastrophe would awaken ahead of time, and the world would tip closer to its end. Damn it, Kim Dokja thought. It's just as I feared. Since we were given a scenario to stop the catastrophe, he reasoned, the Poison Beauties group should have been given a scenario to protect it. 2 sides, 2 missions, colliding over a waking disaster. The catastrophe will be hatched in 2 hours, he knew. Which meant the clock was already running. And crucially, Kim Dokja refused to let his own people fight each other. This isn't the time to be fighting amongst ourselves, he said, seeing the tension crackle between the suspicious Swyong and the mysterious Sangha. Let's take care of this first. Because whatever secrets Sangha carried, whatever wariness Swyong felt, the catastrophe was the real enemy, and division would kill them all. It was pure Kim Dokja, the leader who builds bridges instead of walls, who insists on trust even when trust is hard. The plan came together fast. The Poison Beauties group is based in the Chanhodong area within Gangdong-gu, Dokja explained. It's full of churches and cathedrals. Because the Eastern catastrophe was rising in a landscape of terraformed cathedrals, a haunting battleground of crosses and spires warped by another world. The least terraformed area is north-northeast from their base, near Chanjungaro, Dokja mapped out. If we can make it through there, we'll be able to get to their base in no time. It'll be heavily guarded, though. It's okay, he said. We can move from building to building where possible. And he made his assignments with care. I want Swyong and Sangha to take the front, he said. Try to get along, okay? The 2 most dangerous, most mysterious women on his team, placed side by side, ordered to cooperate. Okay, they agreed. Because this is how Kim Dokja fights his wars, not by dominating his allies, but by trusting them, assigning them, believing in them, even when they're keeping secrets, even when they distrust each other. He had gathered a company of the strange and the powerful, a plagiarist reader, a transformed office worker, a poisoned hero riding along in his mind, a wolf god from another world, and he was aiming all of them at a waking catastrophe in a city being swallowed by another dimension. And then, as they prepared to move, a shape appeared in the shadows. Thud. A masked figure, hooded and silent, materialized in their path. What the, Dokja thought, tensing. Because in a world of 10 evils and catastrophes and terraforming realities, a masked stranger could be anything, an enemy, an ally, or another ghost from the story he thought he knew. 7 days remained in the survival scenario. 2 hours remained to stop the catastrophe. And a new masked figure had just entered the picture. Kim Dokja had welcomed back a friend transformed beyond recognition, mourned a villain who died finding his one moment of grace, and faced a mystery even his complete knowledge of the story couldn't solve, the impossible power of Sangha. The Eastern catastrophe was waking. The Poison Beauty and her cathedral of poisons waited. His company of the strange and the strong was assembled and aimed. And a masked figure had appeared at the edge of it all, carrying who knew what secrets. The loneliest reader in the world stood at the head of an army he didn't fully understand, racing a 2-hour clock toward a disaster that would reshape the world. His story, as always, was only just beginning. The enemy Kim Dokja had come to stop was the Poison Beauty, one of the 10 evils, a woman hatching a catastrophe in a cathedral of the dying. But nothing about her was what it seemed. Because behind her cruelty was a parasite controlling her body, and behind that was a truth that would tear at the heart of the strongest man in the world. To save the day, Kim Dokja would have to choose between the survival of the world and the sanity of the hero he cared about. The raid began in blood. Dash. Slide. Get him, the enemy cried. Don't leave anyone alive. But Kim Dokja's company tore through the Poison Beauty's guards, Swyong and Sanga cutting a path with cold efficiency. Those two make a pretty good pair, Dokja observed of his two most dangerous women fighting side by side. That's rich coming from you, Swyong shot back. And in the chaos, Kim Dokja found what he'd come for. I found it, he thought. The meteorite. The eastern meteorite, glowing red in the heart of the enemy's base, the seat of the catastrophe he had to stop. And then she appeared. White hair, and lips as red as a poppy blooming atop a snowy mountain. I can recognize her right away, Dokja thought. She's one of the 10 evils. The Poison Beauty, Sealwa Lee. The master of poisons, the ruler of this cathedral district, the woman who had poisoned Yu Jonghyuk and left him to die. And Kim Dokja understood exactly what she was doing here, because he knew the ways a meteorite could be hatched. There are 3 ways, he thought. The first is to wait until it hatches naturally. The second is to borrow its power. And the third, and the fastest, is to deliberately fill the meteorite with mana. That was why Sealwa had made her camp in a district full of churches. Because the prayer of the lost releases a slight mana. She was harvesting the desperate faith of survivors, using the prayers of the frightened and the dying to feed the meteorite and hatch the catastrophe ahead of schedule. You should stop, Kim Dokja told her. Stop hatching the meteorite this instant. And if I refuse, she scoffed. You will die here. She was one of the 10 evils, and she did not fear a lone reader. But Kim Dokja noticed something wrong, something that didn't match the story he knew. In the original novel, he thought, Sealwa Lee borrowed the power of the meteorite. But she wasn't foolish enough to try to hatch it early like this. And that's probably why the meteorite shouldn't give her the power to mutate people. Because as he watched, Sealwa did something the Sealwa of the novel never could. She transformed her own followers into monsters. Insect men, the system reported. Tier 8 humanoid demons. She mutated the survivors into insectoid horrors and hurled them at Kim Dokja. The meteorite has given her the power to mutate people. Something was deeply wrong with the Poison Beauty. Kim Dokja fought through them with fire. Blade of Faith has been activated. The ether affix is changed to fire. Flare. Whoosh. He burned through the insect men, carving toward Sealwa, and she met him with her signature weapon. Clang. Poison nails, the system warned, as her venom-tipped claws raked at him. But Kim Dokja was already reading her, and what his skill revealed changed everything. Character profile. Name, Sealwa Lee. Supporting constellation, Divine Dr. Guam. And then the crucial line. This character is infected by a parasite. A parasite is controlling this character's body. Some of parasite Antinous stats have been transferred to this character. Damn it, Dokja thought. I was hoping it wouldn't be, but... Because the Poison Beauty was not acting of her own free will. She was possessed. And the thing possessing her was one of the catastrophes. Parasite Queen, Antinous. Because the fifth scenario was built on the destruction of Kronos, the wolf world, and Kronos had 5 ruling species, each of which had elected a hero when their world died. Those heroes were sent to other worlds through a star stream contract, their survival guaranteed in exchange for helping those worlds fight the oncoming catastrophe. We call those heroes guides, the story explained. Lycaon the Wolf Prince had been one such guide. And so was Antinous, the Parasite Queen. But where Lycaon had come to help, Antinous had gone rogue. Instead of stopping the catastrophe, she was causing it, hollowing out a human woman's body and using it to wake the disaster she was meant to prevent. Human of Earth, Antinous demanded through Sealwa's mouth, how do you know such things? Because Kim Dokja knew everything, the guides, the catastrophes, the dead world of Kronos, all of it from a novel no one else had finished. You're not Sealwa Lee, he said. Why are you waking the catastrophe when you're supposed to be a guide? What you're doing goes against your mission. Leave that body before it's too late. Accomplish the mission you were given, Antinous. He was trying to reason with a rogue god wearing a stolen face. How can a lowly human, Antinous raged, and struck at him with the full fury of a parasite queen. But here is where the chapter breaks your heart. Because Kim Dokja knew who Sealwa Lee really was. He knew that in a past regression, she had been Yoo Jung-hyuk's companion, his lover, the woman the hero still carried in his memories. And he knew what her death would do to the man. If Sealwa Lee dies here, Dokja thought, Jung-hyuk will end up collapsing someday. The death of his acquaintances will eat away at his memories and wear down his mind. Because that is the slow poison of the regressor's curse, every loved one who dies leaves another crack in a mind already stretched across 1,000 lifetimes. Kill Sealwa, and you don't just kill a villain. You take one more piece of Yoo Jung-hyuk's sanity. So Kim Dokja consulted the hero himself, through the private channel. And Yoo Jung-hyuk's answer was ice. Kill her, he said. What, Dokja thought. The survival of the world is more important than her life, Jung-hyuk continued. Think wisely, Dokja Kim. I don't care. His own former lover, and the hero coldly ordered her death for the sake of the mission. It was ruthless, pragmatic, exactly what you'd expect from Yoo Jung-hyuk. Except Kim Dokja knew better. Look at him, he thought, seeing straight through the hero's armor. Pretending not to care. Because that was the truth of Yoo Jung-hyuk. He did care. He cared so much that he could not bear to hope, so he buried the feeling under cold logic and told Kim Dokja to do the thing he himself could never do. I don't care, he'd said, and every word was a lie. And Kim Dokja, the one person who understood him, refused to let the hero's self-protective cruelty become real. I won't have to kill her, he decided. He would find another way. He would save Sealwa Lee, not because the mission required it, but because saving her would save Yoo Jung-hyuk too, from a grief the hero would carry for lifetimes. The problem was the poison. Because Sealwa Lee wielded the 1,000-spirit poison, the same venom that had nearly killed the strongest man in the world, and Kim Dokja had no natural immunity. Do you have a way to fight her 1,000-spirit poison? Jung-hyuk asked through the channel. I do, Dokja answered. And he reached for a treasure earned from a very particular constellation. A constellation worried about the degradation of Oriental medicine revealed his nickname. The divine Dr. Guam, the spirit of the great physician who compiled Korea's most famous medical text, looked upon Kim Dokja in amazement. Item, Dongbobogam, incomplete. Blocks poison damage. It wasn't exactly easy to compile all these pages, Dokja thought wryly, as the ancient medical encyclopedia granted him temporary resistance to poison. Your body has temporarily gained resistance to poison, the system confirmed. Now the poison beauty's deadliest weapon was blunted, and Kim Dokja could fight to free her. And then he turned the parasite's ignorance against it. Antinous, he called, do you know who it is that you've infected? Of course you don't. If you did, you wouldn't have entered her body like that. Because Antinous, in its arrogance, had chosen its host. Without understanding what Sealwa Li truly was, without understanding the connections that bound her to the strongest man alive, without understanding that by possessing her, it had drawn the attention of the one reader who would move heaven and earth to save her. Kayak, I'll kill you, Antinous shrieked through Sealwa's lips. But Kim Dokja was already fighting to drive it out, to reach the woman trapped beneath the parasite, to save both her and the hero who loved her. This is what makes Kim Dokja such an extraordinary protagonist. He fights not just to win, but to preserve what matters most in the people around him. Yu Junghyuk told him to kill Sealwa for the good of the world, and by cold logic, the hero was right. But Kim Dokja could see the lie beneath the logic, the buried grief, the lover the hero would mourn for 1,000 years. And so he chose the harder path, to save a villain, to spare an enemy, because doing so would spare his friend a wound that would never heal. He is a reader who understands that the story is not just about survival. It's about the people, and what they mean to each other, and the losses that break them. Kim Dokja stood in a terraformed cathedral, poison resistance flowing through his veins, a rogue guide wearing the face of a hero's lost love raging before him, and a catastrophe hours from hatching. He had a company of the strange and powerful at his back, a bound hero riding in his mind, and a choice he'd already made, to save Sealwa Li, no matter what it cost, so that Yu Junghyuk would not one day collapse under the weight of her death. The parasite Queen Antinous would not surrender easily. The clock was still running toward the catastrophe. And somewhere beneath the parasite, a woman the hero once loved was still alive, waiting to be reached. The loneliest reader in the world raised his burning blade against a rogue god, fighting not just to save the world, but to save the heart of the man who was slowly, secretly, becoming his friend. His story, as always, was only just beginning.